So today we've got the executive director of Maran Group, Kay Yip, and he will be talking a little bit about his story with us. So it's going to be an interview style. It's going to be interactive and it's going to be exciting. So whenever we have a hard talk, we will get some of our team and those key leaders of our team to speak. And today just so happens as is Kay Yip. So today, without further ado, together with myself, we will have Sam Kyong, who is also the director of Workplace at the River, and Ng Kay Yip himself, who will be having this conversation. All right, so let's start straight off the bat. So Kay Yip, everybody knows you as the executive director of Maran Group, the Maran Resources Group, right? So tell us all here something that we may not have heard anywhere else about you. Something very candid, something personal that you would like the audience to hear.
Thanks, Joel and Samkyung for inviting. It's a privilege just to have this chat and to hear from everybody else what questions they have. Well, I try to be as authentic as I can, so not much to really tell people. But maybe one thing that a lot of people don't know is that I play golf. Sometimes people don't even know that because when people invite me, I don't play because I'm a very special golfer. They call it a 6:30 golf. 6:30 doesn't mean I don't know how to play, but because I play only once a week, 9 holes, and 6:30 in the morning. So, so sometimes you need a torchlight to see the ball because I want to finish early and go to work. And I only do it once a week with the same person all the time. So, but that's just so it's a secret that not many people know. But otherwise, I don't go out and play. Thank you. Maybe that's one of those.
Wow, thanks, Gabe. I think that is really something interesting. He plays golf in practically the dark before the sun rises, right? Yeah. So that's something interesting, Gabe. Yeah. Samkyo, why don't you go ahead and ask the next question?
Right. I'm actually very curious. You carry a torch with you, and who are the other 6:30 golfers that go along with you?
So they call this a group, 6:30 group. But actually, you don't tee off at about 6:30. You tee off a bit later. And you tee off, it's still dark. But when you arrive, say when you reach the ball, you can see the sun slowly coming out. And you can smell the fresh dew, and you can smell the fresh air, everything. It's interesting.
So good, so good. Yeah. That must have been a very inspiring time, right? Early in the morning, right? And breathed in the fresh air. Right. Okay, let's get down to the gist of today's talk. Now, Joel was telling us about how you put aside a piece of prime property right in the middle of KL, and in the most easily accessible place and where there's a high traffic flow, where any person who wants to look for a good place to start a business will have chosen that place at number 28 Medan Pasar. And yet, you put it aside for God's use. What inspired you to do that, Kay Yip?
Thank you, Samkyung, for that question. As I look back, and when I look back, it is not something that is by design. A lot of things happen through a confluence of people and events. And one of the things after I rededicated myself to the Lord, I then had this enjoying my personal relationship with the Lord. And I read the Bible, and it's like a time where I can just spend time talking and reading. And then I realized that such a rich experience, if only other people can also feel that, right? And what more other people than my own staff? So I said, okay, then the church was also planning this workplace conference in 2018 or 17, I can't remember when it was. So I participated in that. And then when I went there, then they introduced me to Claudia, who was running Alpha program. And I said, well, this is actually what I want, because instead of me talking to them, the church is doing everything for me to then introduce Alpha and in a structured way for me to introduce what I believe in my heart to my colleagues in the workplace, right? And it just happened that at that time, a tenant on the first floor moved out. So when he moved out, initially I wanted to have him in a boardroom, right, in our office floor itself, but then we didn't have enough space, and then it just happened that one of the tenants on the first floor moved out. Then I thought, okay, while they move out, and I can also waiting for the next tenant to come in, I just use this place to have those meetings, which only takes about 3 months anyway, right? So then I said, okay, we'll do that. But when the conference ended successfully and people were inspired, and I can see that there's joy that sparked in their lives, then I said, okay, why didn't I ask the church whether they'd like to use this for future alpha courses if they want to? And then it turned out that, at that time it was Johnny and Jennifer, and then they asked you to come and take a look, and Sam Kyung and Joel. And when you came, you said, you know something? We've been planning to have a church being planted in the workplace, and this place is central. It fits into your plans, and I felt that okay, let's. Then if that's what is your plan, I'm very happy. It's a privilege to actually work together with the church and to have this church plant. And there was only 1/3 of the floor at the time. And so I thought that, well, it's big enough, right? 1/3 of the floor, a small church plant. Then I said, at that time, then there was a space next door, and a money changer wanted to come and rent the place about the same time. And then he said, look, I want this place, no matter what, I want this place. But I said, okay, Terrence at that time was my property manager, and he spoke to me. This guy is coming to pay the deposit. And I said, okay, before he does that, let me ask Sam Kyung whether the church wants to expand or not. Then you guys said, okay, I want it. Then I said, okay, we'll take that. So it was quite lucky that instead of the money changer next to it, you have extended. And of course, then we had the pandemic when it started, and then now there's opportunity to the clinic wasn't doing so well with the pandemic, and now the opportunity to open up for the whole floor came about towards the end of last year, and then it just then took the whole floor. And I say that it's actually a privilege. It's not so much of me giving up. It's a privilege to allow to invite God's presence to come in. So it's not so much of me giving up. It is me gaining from that. And I was very thankful. And before the church was officially opened around March 2020, right? I think that was last year, March 2020. I was actually thanking the Lord one day in January, and I was asking, what is it that should be my posture going forward in terms of how do I look at this place? And I was having time thinking and praying, and I think two events come to mind, right? And one was actually when I was reading Isaiah 55, one of those in 2015 and 2016. I was reading the first few verses, and it says, "Come, all of you who are thirsty, come to the waters. And you who have no money, come buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without money and without cost. Why do you spend money on what is not bread, and your labor on what is not satisfying?" And I remember I was in my office looking out the window, and I see people walking around, rushing to the offices, buying lunch, and then making a living. And I remember these verses, it's like as though the Lord himself is asking people, why you spend a lot of time working? What is important? Why don't you just come? It's free. My word for you is free. my gift to you is free. Come and listen a bit. So I think that is an image that I have, and it's still vivid in my mind. And the other image that comes to my mind was, where my office is located is the center of KL, and that is also the place where every time our nation is going through some crisis, people gather. And I remember that in 2016, it was a Bersih 2.0 rally, right? And that was when people wanted clean elections and reformation to the country. And there was at least 100, well, there were some people saying about 300,000 people just gathered around the Merdeka Square and also the street of Tun Perak and where my office is. And I remember at that time, I listened to this song by Richard Kendrick called "Oh Lord, the Clouds Are Gathering." And this song is also a prayer. It's all about a verse in the scripture on Amos chapter 5, verse 24. And let justice flow like a river and righteousness like a never-ending stream. And the song is about pleading for God's mercy, for God's forgiveness, for what is happening in the country, to restore and to revive the church, and to ask for justice and righteousness. And I remember playing that song, 2016, towards the fourth quarter, when at the Bersih rally, at least 100 times. Every time I drove out of the office and passed by the Merdeka Square, I would play it. But then I stopped playing after 2017 because other events in Malaysia took place, right? And you then focus on other things. But in 2020, this was before the fall of Pakatan, right? Harapan, and nobody knew it was going to fall anyway. I heard this in my heart, that son, you have been praying. I was listening. I'm still listening. Don't stop praying the same prayer. That was in 2020, early 2020, and that's the posture that I also believe that this is a place where whole church needs to continue to intercede for the country, to bring about a change in a godly way. Yeah. So that is basically gist of how the place come about, and the posture that I like to take when I come to that place. Yeah. Thank you.
Wow, thanks, Kip. It's certainly inspiring, and how your story is so based on God. Yeah, you really seek God in prayer. I like the story because it's something that I don't think many of us have heard, that we used to, it was going to be rented out to a money changer, but I'm going to claim that this place is now rented out to life changers.
Yes.
So
Amen to that.
So yeah, workplace at the river will be life changers, not just money. Yeah, it's following what you said in Isaiah 55. So Kay, I'm sure when you started up and when you were praying, as these words from God, both from Isaiah 55, Amos, and God must have put something in your heart, and I believe you have a certain way that you view it. You may not want to call it a vision, but you kind of offered up this place to God. So how do you see it? And of course, the follow-up to that is, based on how you see it, has it fulfilled, or to a certain extent met what you had in mind for this place, this physical venue?
I don't know whether the word is fulfilled, because I think God surprises us all the time. Who would know that when we open, then there's a pandemic, then everything changes. But all I know is that it's a privilege to work with such a wonderful core team. And it's not the place, actually, the church is the people, the community, right? So I think to see people of the same mission and vision coming together and brainstorming, coming with ideas on how to make positive changes to the workplace, that is, I think, something that I see being fulfilled gradually, but in a new way, because we have to think of how we want to do things from now on. But the place is there, and I think it's instead of I think the whole idea of how churches are going to function in the future is going to be very different. And I think it's no coincidence that the church is coming to the workplace rather than the workplace going to the church. So I think that is something that I think is God is preparing for this change in advance of what is going to happen. Right?
Wow, thanks, Kay. Actually, I was going to ask a little bit about your expectation, but I like that phrase that you just said. You know, the whole thing about instead of the workplace going to the church, but now the church is going to the workplace. Would you be able to just elaborate on that and you know how this phrase has been real to you and how do you see it playing out, especially right now with Workplace at the River being formed?
Yeah, I think you know, the way I look at it, you know, there used to be, if you look at churches in New York or London and all that, they were always formed in a marketplace in the beginning, a few hundred years ago. And that's how, you know, things grew from there. It's part and parcel of life. But somehow, over the last couple 100 years or so, people tend to look at church as Sunday and workplace as Monday to Friday. But I think this pandemic has forced us to rethink what is church and what does God want us to do in going forward in the future. So it is a new thing. It's quite exciting as well. So and I leave it to the wisdom of the church leaders to keep brainstorming while we just make ourselves as obedient and faithful stewards, you know, on that. Yeah. Thank you.
I like that. You know, you're really like a man whose feet are planted on the ground, but with an eye to the future. That's there's so much more that we would really love to know about you. And you told us a little bit about yourself, and then you told us about what inspired you to set up this place, you know, to dedicate it for God's use. How about a little bit more about yourself? How do you see yourself as a boss? I mean, you are the CEO or the owner of a huge Maran Holdings, which has got about a few thousand employees, if I'm not wrong. And how do you see yourself as a boss? And as much as the God has inspired you to use the place, how has God inspired you to use your company? How has it been for you?
Right. I think moving forward to, going back to the question that Joel mentioned, one of the things I find that, you know, the company is one of the best place that we can use as a vehicle to bless people. And I think so true. We need to have ideas from church leaders. What are companies in other countries, other places doing that we can follow and emulate and we can learn from. And in that context, you know, then we learn how to bless others. But for myself, I don't call myself a boss. I tell my staff, don't ever call me, you know, especially in Malaysia, boss cool is a word that nobody wants to be called. So, but I do call myself as a colleague because I always find that it's important to treat everybody because we're all equal in God's eyes. And over the last couple of years, I also learned a few more. How does God want us to look into how our people who are under our employment, our colleagues, and I think the word is shepherd. Not so much of a boss because there are many types of leaders, right? But I think the one leadership quality that God wants us to use from the Bible is shepherd leadership. And I think there's a verse that I have that resonates with me very strongly. And that's in Psalm 78, 72, says that, and David shepherded his flock with integrity, and he led them with skillful hands. So it is very important because it embodies what marketplace leader should be. Number one, you should shepherd rather than instead of to manage people, how do you build people up? so that you build people up, they manage your business. You don't manage people to build your business. So that's number one. And you do it with integrity and with authenticity so that they will feel a belonging and they will feel that they want to also learn from you. And it is a life-changing thing. You pick up skills, you know. I learn every day and I like to impart what I learn to my colleagues. So we learn to pick up new skills, especially in the current era where you can learn from anywhere in the world. All these new ideas and then you lead, you shepherd them with the skillful hands. So it's a burden to be a shepherd. It's not going to be served, but to serve. I think that is something that I try to implement and try to practice. Still ongoing process, I must say, but still, yeah. But that's the way I look at leadership. Thank you.
Thanks, Kay Yip. And I think that word shepherd is very true, because among all things, you are actually serving right now, because you're serving us here, not just Sam Kyung and myself, but I think all the viewers here. You know, you are serving us, you know, by sharing your stories. I just want to shift gears a little bit and maybe talk a little bit about Kay Yip, the businessman. So for some of you who know the introduction that I gave at the start, you know, Kay Yip is the head of the Maran Group of companies. It started off as a timber manufacturing company, and something that Kay Yip did, and incidentally, it is exactly 1 year ago. It was the 1st of October last year where this happened. Kay Yip conducted this rebranding exercise, and I had the privilege of being there as well to meet some of the people, some of the staff. So what made you do this rebranding exercise right in the middle of a pandemic? For some of you who remember, the 1st of October was just a little bit before the cases started to go up, right? So Kay Yip decided to do the rebranding. There was he invited consultants and all that. Yeah. So what made you do this at such a time? And do you think it is a strategic business move on your part?
I think it was I mean, when I look back, I think it's the right move. And definitely it is an inspired move by the Holy Spirit. And the reason why I say that is because my father started a business many years ago, but it is like, you know, through organic growth, and there was no very clear-cut plans for it. But we grew, by God's grace, we grew from a timber business, and then we went on to become property development and construction, and now we have other things as well. But it's always good to have some core values, right? And all of us actually do have core values. It's just that do we make it easy for other people to understand, or is it implied? And I felt that it's time to, as new staff come into the company, younger staff come in, that it's important to have a company culture. And that's when I put myself into thinking, and then and we got consultants from Indonesia and from other places to teach me, you know, what are some of other companies, what do they do? And that's when I came up with, together with my staff, what are some of the company's principles? And I'd like to share this with you. So, and this is basically our company's principle, which is based on the word love, L-O-V-E. L meaning we love and honor God in our company. Although we live in a country where there are different faiths, but as a company, I do encourage everyone to have a faith, to know who God is, and to discover more and more about who their God is. So, but I'm as far as I'm concerned, I mean, you know, it's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the God of the Scriptures. But we don't stop others from doing it, but we want it to know that we are not here in the world by accident. So that's number first one. And the word O actually is outstanding employees. So we want, as I mentioned just now, we want to build our employees up to be very good in what they do, to let them learn new skills, and also to be excellent in their skill sets. The other arm is to value our stakeholders. That's V. When you value the stakeholders, it just doesn't mean the employees, but it means our customers, it means our suppliers, it means our bankers, it even means our environment, because I'm in a natural resources business. It also means the community that we live in. We need to value them and to know that they're part and parcel of our life. And then we also need to have E. E is to have excellent financial discipline. We want to be efficient in what we do. We want to be. We want to know that we are stewards of the resources that we have financially. And if we have these three principles and to honor God in our place, the company will definitely have surplus. So it's a circle, meaning that when we have surplus, the money we pour back in the circle to the employees to make this circle bigger, so that it influences more people in the community, and it will also help build them up. So that is our company principle. And the important thing I felt is that after that, I've been looking into, whenever I see a company, I look into their core values. I find that I'm very encouraged by a lot of the core values. But the thing is that we do see that sometimes, how do you tell that, the staff, this is your core value, but the core value doesn't help them when they go home. So it's a 9 to 5, they got this core value and this company vision. And then go back home from 5 to the next morning. Are they supposed to change their mindset into a different core value? So I wanted to have a core value where I tell my staff, when you do have this core value, it's the same core value that you should apply in your family at home. When you do this, it is consistent throughout 24 hours a day, number one. Number two, as you bless the company, you bless your family, right? So it's important that I really went through this core value many times to make sure that I always tell my colleagues and the staff in the company that whenever we have a strategy and whenever we have a principle like this, it is not that you just do it at work, but you internalize it so that you can actually use these core values in your family and you'll be blessed, I told them. So I think in a way we can see changes taking place. And also in my company, we have foreign workers, and foreign workers, and a lot of companies, they say, okay, well, I give them a job. But that's not enough, because they come from a faraway place. They're young. They probably come from a kampong somewhere in Myanmar or Vietnam or somewhere. But we want to also teach them. So we actually employ interpreters and coaches to come and tell them what is the meaning of a healthy lifestyle. There is more to life than just getting a job and sending money back to your family. You need to enrich your emotional life, spiritual life. So that we're trying to do that. So that's what I think that the core value will lead to those things happening. Thanks.
Wow, that's so great, Kay Yip. You talk about core values that doesn't only exist in the workplace, but initiated by the workplace and translated into the whole of the life, even the home life. It's like, instead of what many people do, using people to build business, you are an employer that use your business to build people. That's an excellent attitude, and it's such a generous nature that you have in your own personal core values. But sometimes we get many people who are not business owners, or even if they're business owners, they say, "Oh, that's Kay Yip, that's I'm not like him, he owns companies." But if I were an employee, if I were a young employee, not an employee, but I were a young employee, how could I do the same? How could a young person do the same? And especially if I'm not resource rich, if I'm not having all the resources at my hands, how can I be as generous in the same way as you are? Maybe you can share a bit what your insight is on this.
Well, I'm not generous. I don't think I'm far from it. I mean, some people might think that I'm
You're
very
just being
calculative.
modest.
Yeah, but I think that we start somewhere. We just have to start somewhere. Uh, um, I mean, I started my family. My father started, coming from a simple background, and he didn't have much education. So we learned to also, be very careful with money when I was young. But one thing I learned is that just that sometimes we are heirs to what other people have toiled for, and we just have to be grateful for whatever situation, especially that we're in. Especially when you feel blessed, we have to be grateful. And I think having that grateful posture, it's helps a lot to give, because then you feel that actually, to give is better than to receive after a while when you practice it. And actually it's true.
That's right.
And I feel that when you start, as long as you start, right, then you will find that it will lead you to a more and more generous personality. Number two is that I don't really look into who is giving this or that. I just prefer to challenge myself, to stretch my heart, all the time. That is what I prefer to do. Just like I like sports, and I don't challenge myself into winning competition, but challenge myself into doing better and better all the time. But I do remember one thing though, that if you make a promise to God, God always remembers it. And don't forget the vow that you made to God, because He will remind you. I think that is something that be careful about that. It's in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, and that's something that I always take to heart. To be careful when you tell God something, and He will always remember what you tell Him.
Wow, indeed, yeah, something for all of us to remember, and thanks for being that reminder to us, Kate. Yeah, God remembers the vows that we have said to Him, and I'm just very encouraged by your whole sharing. At the end of the day, don't compare yourself. In terms of being generous. Yeah, like you say, you don't compare yourself in terms of sports or anything else, but you compare yourself to yourself. Yeah, so I think that's something for us to learn. Don't look to the left, don't look to the right, but just look at how you are designed to be. We want to talk about where we are at now, and what the future is going to look like. So in this time of changes, and I mean, there have been a lot of changes, especially with COVID-19 happening. So how can we grapple with these changes, especially with this phrase that everybody is saying, the new norm, right? So how has the workplace changed? How do you see it? What do you perceive that's going to happen in the coming weeks and months?
Mm-hmm. It's a question that, from all the professors to all the, even everyone in the world is asking that question. I think, and there's no right or wrong, because we're still going to uncharted territories, right? But what I can see is that, what I do learn is that it's going to be different for everybody, and it is important to respond and not to react. Things are changing so fast that sometimes we just react from news, but we need to sit back and respond. That means we react with emotional intelligence, to think carefully before we make change and change our direction. But having said that, I do feel that this is a wonderful time for businesses, for individuals to redefine their purpose. For individuals, whether you're an employee or a staff, you can redefine your role already, because, and for even companies, we need to redefine why we exist and how do you want to, what's the purpose going forward? Because there are three things that are happening. One is the reach, REACH. We can now reach the whole world with what we do, right? For example, I have a company and we have programmers in Pakistan and Syria working with us. And then our sales coach is from Texas. The reach is amazing. And the other thing is the richness, RICH, of information. Because of 5G, because of internet, because of collaborative tools, the information that you can convey to people is going to be very rich. It's going to be video form, later virtual reality. All those things are going to make it more and more real. And the third thing is mobility. People are going to be more and more mobile once the pandemic is over. For example, I was just talking to one of the vice presidents of Tokopedia, an Indonesian company today, and he said that 40% of the staff are working from Bali, right? Because they holiday and also work at the same time. So mobility is going to be enhanced, increased. Richness of information is going to be going upward trend. These are the positive trends, the tailwinds. And the reach is also, the reach people in all the world is a possibility, and distinct possibility now. But the thing is that interaction with people is going to be even more important, but it's going to be more intentional. People are not going to just interact because time is precious. So people are just going to interact for the purpose of interacting. And I think that for what we do as a company, we need to look into how we make use of these three tailwinds to pivot our business. And it's also an exciting time for the church, because your reach and your richness of information is going to make a big change in terms of how the community of believers are going to interact. It's not going to be Sunday church alone. The church is going to the marketplace. The marketplace is going to the church. So it's all going to be one. And if you so there's a lot more active, vibrant, lively community of people with the same belief, and how we can enrich one another in that process. I think to me it's exciting. So we embrace. It's not going to be the old norm again. It's going to be a new thing. Yeah.
Wow, thanks for that, Kay. I think it's really inspiring, and for those of you who didn't catch that, for Kay Yip, he sees it in three ways: the reach, the richness of information, and mobility. So that's something. Thank you for sharing your insight. We are really running out of time, but we really enjoyed speaking to you. I think I speak for both Samkyung and myself. We truly enjoyed hearing you, and I believe the audience are very blessed as well. But we've got a bunch of questions that have come in from some of the audience. So I'm going to let Samkyung go ahead with the first question.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. Kay Yip, I'm really amazed as this concept that you shared, the richness and the mobility. You're talking about the new norm. But now currently, although this is what we can look forward to, but while the numbers are coming down and the restrictions are being lifted, people are sort of going back. You go to the streets, you see cars on the road, these people going back to the offices. They are going back to some sort of like business as usual. So what do you see of how much of it will be business as usual and how much of it will be what you just described as this exciting new norm? And how long do you think it would be before we reach some form of stability?
Okay, I think that's a very tough question, Samkyung.
So
but
sorry to start
there's no going back to a stability. I don't think it will take quite a long time, because things are going to change so fast with technology, that if you want things to stabilize and then you will only wait for stabilization, I don't think it will happen. Okay, For example, right, I just give an example. I like to use examples because I think that's more people can remember better. I have a shopping retail outlet mall that we manage and own. And during the pandemic, there are going to be restaurants that close, right? They cannot survive anymore. So a lot of malls are just going to just say, okay, I'll just wait for the new normal, things to come back slowly and all that. But I think it won't, because based on my observation with other people and across the world, things are going to change. So what we have done is we then scour Malaysia for people who are also willing to see a new change. And then we found this cloud kitchen. I don't know whether you heard of cloud kitchen, but a cloud kitchen is like a shared office space, but shared kitchen instead. So we share resources. The world is going to change into a lot of sharing. So we find that a lot of people who are young, they want to start a business, but they don't have the means to do it, and they worry about all the uncertainty. They want to minimize their setup costs and all that. So someone has to take the burden of taking the courage to set up the infrastructure. And these people are then willing to pay on a day-to-day basis, an hourly basis, or a monthly basis, a space that is ready for them. And they just do what they do best, which is to cook. And then the washing and all that will be done by other people. And we even use a robot to serve the food, you know. So there's cashless payment. You use a cashless payment system, cashless ordering system, a robot to bring to you so that you don't have less chance of it's more hygienic. So we keep moving to the new place all the time. And I take another case of another company called Airbnb. I think you've heard of Airbnb, right? So hotels, while waiting for the new things to stabilize, Airbnb has pivoted. Do you know that the business actually has gone way past pre-pandemic levels? Because they will keep changing how they operate. So while hotels are slowly gaining back, Airbnb says that their bookings, their revenue has surpassed even their pre-pandemic. So I think to look at things with a fresh pair of eyes and to not wait for the new norm is important.
Wow, I like the way you say it, look with a fresh pair of eyes and not wait. Yeah, I think we should strike now and not wait till everything becomes normal, because nothing is going to be normal, right? Kay, maybe you can talk a little bit about some advice, because I think while we are all in this together, this pandemic and the changing times, there's also a bunch of millennials. So that's people like me. And by the way, the oldest millennials are already turning 40. So but there's a bunch of millennials. Yeah, I'm not near there. Anyway, that are joining the workforce now, and we are all needing to adapt to this as well. So what is something that you'd like to tell the millennials, and of course the next one is called Gen Z, born, I think it's born late 90s or after 2000, that are going to join the workforce around this time. What is something that you would like to tell all of us, all these millennials and Gen Z as well?
Sometimes I envy you guys, millennials, because you're in a very exciting time. Sometimes I also find that I wish I can't. Luckily I'm not a millennial because the pressure is so high, right? But I think that to borrow something from what Warren Buffett, who I always read a lot of what he says, even if you're in a country that has, wherever you go, make sure your pair of hands is required. Just pick up useful skills, be good at, know what your skill set is, what you're good at, and just keep learning and be good at what you do. You'll be required all the time, right? So that is one area. And number two, the competition is great, but at the same time, because what I mentioned, the richness, the reach is so big. Anything you do can scale up very, very fast. What it takes my father's 60 years to do can be done in a year, if we find a sweet spot. And to collaborate with people, I think it's very important. I think gone are the days where a person starts with his brother, a family business, and then slowly grow. Collaboration and speed is important, I think, because many years ago, like even during my time, to borrow money to start a business is not easy, right? But now, if you have an idea, people were just going to fund you. You don't even need your money to do it. So just be good at what you do. Be open to ideas all the time, and there are lots of opportunities out there. Actually. Thank you.
Wow, you really hit the nail on the head, okay? Because the very next question actually came from someone who is youngish and would ask, how would you view the business scene these days? You know, how and I think you just answered it by adapting to the situation, and we really have the heart for it. And the question was actually, if you really have the idea and the heart to go into a business, would you advise them to do it? And I think you just answered that. But it goes on to say that even as they do it, how could it, by having this younger workforce come in, do you think it will provide job opportunities, contribute to the economy, and to serve the nation and the community by having these young people coming in to start new businesses? Do you think it will help build a nation? These young people in starting new businesses or venturing into new ideas and putting into practice what that's really in the mind to do.
Yeah, I think definitely. You know, there's no fear of failure. I think one of the good things about the new millennium is that people are not so worried about failing, just like a startup. So it's important to try, but prudence and wisdom and knowledge, you know, these are things that you can always be always look out for. People, older generation, like gray-haired people like myself, to get third opinion, second opinion, you know, before you just jump in. Some of us old people do have some experience to tell the younger people what not to do, what to do. At least to keep an open mind to reach out to the older generation. I mean, I am involved in a couple of startups, and they're millennials, and I think it's really wonderful to work with them. I believe the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a big shift in companies that are going to be run by very young people. I think I see that happening. I see that happening in businesses now. I see that happening in the sports. You see the Olympic Games. You see the Wimbledon. They're 18 years old, 19 years old. They're winning gold medals. They're going to win the tennis world. This should be 25, but now it's moved to 18. You see people who are startups who are below 30, 20, 25. So I think there's a big shift coming along. Yeah. So it's very exciting to be a millennial.
Right. But would, maybe just a follow-on question, would that render the older generation irrelevant? And like, as you say, the age of achievement seems to be coming lower and lower.
Right.
What would then what would the older people do, like you and I? You know, what would we do then?
I think I think to be a child at heart is important. I think to keep learning. I mean, I have friends my age who say, I want to retire. I want to do my bucket list. It's time for me to do my bucket list now. And I ask myself, why am I doing all these companies that are new startups and then new businesses? But I suppose, again, it is you know, for those of us who enjoy working, who have a calling to work, there are more opportunities now than before, because a lot of young companies who have young people are very good in dreaming ideas, but eventually you need old hands to come and steer the ship, to navigate. And I think that you see that happening in the US, Silicon Valley, where you have Facebook, you have Google's, the CEOs, I mean, become the visionaries, but the day-to-day operations are done by 60 years old, 50, 60 years old people. And they have the experience, right? So at the end of the day, you still need a collaboration between the older people who know how to organize things, and the younger people who are dreaming of ideas and who have boundless energy, and they're fearless, right? So yeah, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Kay. Yeah, I think that's very encouraging for a young person like me. But I think, Kate, you really rounded it up by saying, the young people, they will be the ones that dream all these crazy dreams, and it's the older people that end up working and they have a purpose and a call as well, in their various places. And I think that's a very good reminder to all of us here, all the viewers as well, today, that we all have a purpose, we all have a part to play in, well, firstly in our families, but also in our companies, and yeah, wherever we have been placed for such a time as this. So, Kate, we want to thank you so much for spending your time. We would really, I think it's because it's interview style, we could keep going, right? But I think everybody has appointments, so we're going to say thank you so much. I think Samkyung and myself really are pleased to have you, and we want to appreciate you, Kay Yip, for really dedicating the space, and even what we've heard from you today. You're still serving. You are still giving of your time. You're still sharing your expertise, of what you do and what you do best. So we want to thank you so much, and I believe that God will bless all that you do, the work of your hands, as you continue to lead and guide this company. Yeah, thanks again.